Today we're going to share with you what is probably the most versatile fruit tree here in Arizona and just about anywhere. That's up next. Hello everyone, this is Dwayne with Edge of Nowhere Farm, and we're coming to you here today. It is the middle of April 2021. So if you guys follow us along, you know that we've been on this property for a little over a year. In fact, we planted our very first fruit tree in the ground here just over a year ago. So you guys know we love our mulberries here on the farm. We have several different varieties, and all of them really have a special place in our hearts because it gives amazing production here in Arizona. They grow fantastic and they taste amazing. So with all those things in mind, we have our first harvest today on our ever-bearing mulberries that we wanted to share with you. And I also want to talk a little bit about why we love this particular tree so much. So I'm going to go ahead and link the video here where we actually planted these trees. The idea here on the farm is to have these trees as a hedge and a shade protection for the coop and run that you see behind it. That's where we have our laying hens, and they face the western sun. So that will allow shade, especially during the summertime, the hottest part of the year, additional shade for our chickens. So we really love the fact that we can grow them like a hedge, grow them nice and tall, and during the summertime they have nice dense foliage that'll give us amazing shade. Now, of course, at the same time, they're going to lose their leaves during the wintertime when the sun's in that direction or that part of the sky, and we don't need that immediate shade protection on this side of the coop and run. So placement for us was key because we wanted to make sure we had it for more than just one purpose. Before we get to the harvest on these trees today, I want to talk a little bit about some reasons why I think this may be the best fruit tree to plant anywhere in the United States. And it's unique in that regard. Anybody in Arizona knows that mulberry trees grow amazing. They grow very, very quickly for us. They're very aggressive. They take full sun. They need the cold winters that we have here. You know, we get down to 20 degrees. These survive no problem. They muscle right through it. And of course, the production is incredible. So here in Arizona, it's a fantastic fruit tree to grow. Now, even if you're not in Arizona, I still think it's a fantastic tree. The reality is, what the three trees you see behind me here, we actually propagated ourselves from air layerings on our old farm. So these trees are actually fully Arizona acclimatized trees, and you can do that anywhere. This tree, when we purchased it, actually spent its first year in a pot. So it grew in a pot here in Arizona with a little bit of afternoon shade, and it did just fine. That's important because if you're not here in Arizona and you get much colder, you may have to put this in a pot, and because of the way it grows, it actually does very, very good in pots as well. So if you are able to get that harvest during the summertime and you're colder in the winter, the fact that this is ever-bearing, you actually may benefit more. Places like Florida, where you've got tropical weather, these also do really well. And from what I understand, you actually get a much more extended harvest. So it's truly ever-bearing. For us here in Arizona, we get a couple of different seasons. We get a spring season that you're going to see now, and we get a very, very small fall season as well. So we get a couple of different seasons of production. We also can use this tree for livestock fodder. It's one of the reasons we actually have it next to the chickens. So we can take whole branches, lop them off. The chickens will love the berries, and they'll also eat the leaves. Larger livestock like sheep and goats, even cattle and pigs, they'll eat the branches and the leaves all together. So fantastic tree in that regard. You can see we're growing these here as a hedge, so we're going to keep them more semi-bush-like. You can also coppice these. That's basically cutting them all the way down to the ground and then letting them grow from a little nub every single year. You can also pollard them, so you can cut them so that they're a little bit taller. Maybe if you're in more of a temperate climate but don't get super cold, you might still be able to put these in the ground, put some type of protection around them during the wintertime, get them through your winter and back into your spring, and actually get them in the ground that way. You can see we do have a small trunk on these, so you can actually let them grow to a taller trunk and give you an amazing amount of shade. So using these as a shade tree would be another great option for you. For us, when it comes to mulberries here on the farm, production is our focus, and that's actually what we want to show you today. Is the production we're getting off of these one-year-old trees. They've been in the ground for 1 year, so keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of these branches to see what we're gonna be looking at today. So we're just looking at one branch on one of these 3 trees, and we're in the middle of the growing season. Remember, these have an ever-bearing kind of habit, and we're getting our first harvest off of these 1-year-old trees today. But as I lift this up, you're gonna see, hopefully we can get it on camera, you're gonna see just some amazing production on this one branch of this 1-year-old tree. So you can see we have just an amazing amount of production on this one branch, and there's 3 trees. So now let's go ahead and take a harvest and see what these look like, and more importantly, what they taste like. When it comes to harvesting mulberries, the key with this, they should basically just fall off into your hand. Now you can pick these when they're not completely ripe. They'll be a little more tart and sweet. These should be on the sweet side, but you can see just a beautiful, beautiful berry. They're probably a little bigger than, I'd say about the size of a nickel or so. Just a beautiful black color. And you can see they are just plump full of juice. So we can talk about these all day, but let's actually see what they taste like. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. Wow, those are fantastic. So if you've never had a mulberry before, the best way to describe it, if you have a blackberry, you know, blackberries are a little tart and sweet. This really doesn't have much in the way of tart, definitely sweet. And then of course with blackberries, usually you have seeds, no seeds in these. So you don't have kind of that crunchy seed that you would get from a blackberry. So very, very sweet. Oh, just an incredible, incredible berry. So now we're gonna go ahead and get a harvest off of these trees. We wanna show you just how much production you can get off of 1-year-old trees. And I'm really looking forward to see exactly what all this fruit is gonna look like. It's totally legit to eat them like So we spent the last probably 20 minutes or so enjoying the chickens, harvesting these berries. There's a lot of options as far as how you can harvest these. A lot of folks I know will put a sheet or a tarp down, they'll shake the tree and they'll get ripe mulberries off that way. You know, at the same time you do get a lot of red ones when you do that. We've tried that before. So we prefer to just pick them off by hand, eat a few while we're going, enjoy our time, and spend some time listening to the chickens cackle in the background and lay some eggs. So I want to show you really quick the differences in size on some of these berries. So you can see the difference here. Now we got one that's a little bit red. That'll be more tart than sweet. So if you're into tart, almost like a raspberry, you want that one. But you can see the variation in size. We have one here that's smaller than a dime. We have one here that's about the size of a quarter. Now, one thing I can tell you, this is about the biggest mulberry we've seen off the ever-bearing mulberries, which gets me thinking the fact that these mulberries actually are a second generation here in Arizona, maybe they're starting to acclimatize and we're getting these large fruit after only a year. But you get an idea of the way these berries look. So we got about a half a gallon or so of mulberries off the trees. Now, that doesn't include the mulberries that Lori and I were eating as we went. But we got a pretty good harvest. Remember, this is the very first harvest off of these trees this season. There are still hundreds and hundreds of mulberries on these trees. So now one of the things that we talk a little bit about here on the farm that we're challenged with out here in the desert is protecting fruit, particularly from birds. You name the fruit, birds go after it, even citrus. And one of the great parts about these ever-bearing mulberries, even though the berries are small, the harvest is still pretty good, and you don't really have to worry about the birds because the birds can have as many as they want. There's still hundreds and hundreds left over for us. So you can see why we love our mulberries so much here on the farm. You know, these ever-bearing mulberries, I think, are just about the perfect tree. If you're not gonna grow citrus, you don't wanna try to fight off the birds, you want a very low maintenance tree that's very easy to grow, has so many possibilities as far as food, fodder for livestock, shade, and beauty. I don't think you can do better than an ever-bearing mulberry. I mean, there are a few other options, but it's sure hard to beat. So just want to thank you for joining us today. If you haven't done so already, hey, subscribe to the channel. We cover a lot of things like this when it comes to fruit trees. We'd love to have you here and share the content. You got anybody that you think might be interested in this, we'd really encourage you to do that. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section down below. And our Amazon shop, I'll leave a link down in the description below. If you start with that link, it doesn't matter what you buy, you help to support us here. So just want to thank you for joining us today and remind you, if we can farm on the edge of nowhere, so can you.